Welcome to This Explainer. You know the dream, right? Booking that flight, escaping the 9-to-5 grind, and just totally immersing yourself in a beautiful, unfamiliar culture somewhere across the globe. It's exhilarating. But have you ever stopped to think about what happens when that unfamiliarity is suddenly turned against you? Today we're going to dive into how those perfect travel fantasies can abruptly turn into psychological thrillers. We'll be unpacking 3 incredibly distinct, real-world case studies that expose the hidden, everyday vulnerabilities we all share the second we step outside our... Let's jump right into a moment of pure, unadulterated dread, just to understand how fast a dream vacation can flip. Picture this. You're walking back to your room after a really relaxing afternoon. You casually glance over your shoulder and you notice someone matching your pace. They aren't right on your heels, but just far enough away to look casual. Yet they're close enough to send an absolute chill down your spine. That right there, that is the exact moment the illusion of safety shattered. Brings us to the million-dollar question framing our entire analysis today. When you're thousands of miles from home, who is actually watching you? Think about it. When you don't know the local language, you don't know the layout of the back streets, and you're clueless about the social norms, you completely lose your home field advantage. You're suddenly relying on surface-level observations, totally oblivious to the predators who know every single inch of that environment.
Case Study 1, the Thailand Stalker.
Okay, imagine waking up at 2 a.m. You're in a geographically isolated beach town, staying on the ground floor of a modest little hotel, literally hundreds of miles from a single person you know. First you hear a sound outside. You brush it off. Probably just an animal, right? But then it gets clearer. Footsteps. And those footsteps stop directly outside your window. You're sitting there, completely still in the dark. And then you hear your door handle slowly, gently turn. One single, slow...
Here's the thing. This threat didn't just magically materialize at 2 a.m. It was a classic boiling frog situation. The escalation actually started the previous evening right around sunset. The traveler was out riding a rented scooter and noticed another scooter perfectly mimicking his speed on an empty coastal road. If he sped up, the other guy sped up. If he slowed down, the stalker slowed down. Fast forward to noon the next day, a man wearing that exact same dark jacket is just standing at the tree line of the beach, not looking at the ocean, just watching the tourists. And then comes that 2 a.m. climax. The threat had been boiling right in front of him the whole time.
After the door handle turns, our traveler, who is terrified at this point, pulls back just a tiny corner of his window curtain. And the man crouched right there beneath the window, looking up in the moonlight, it was the guy from the beach, the exact same dark jacket from the scooter. He had systematically tracked this traveler to his specific room and it exposes a terrifying methodology we call the geographic exploit. See, when the traveler tried to call the front desk at 2 a.m., nobody answered. The hotel didn't have overnight staff, completely maximizing his vulnerability. We later found out from the hotel owner that this stalker had actually been reported for a year, but because of the isolation, he would always vanish into the jungle long before the geographically distant police could show up. And the scariest part? Even after the traveler packed up in a panic and relocated to a totally new hotel closer to town, he spotted the exact same man on a scooter, watching him from across the street at a convenience store just 2 hours later. The stalker owned that terrain.
Moving on to Case Study 2, the Brussels Intruder.
This one is all about a terrifying cascade of mistakes. It kicks off when a 17-year-old kid on a high school trip decides to sneak out of his hotel at night to meet a girl in a rough, neon-lit neighborhood way outside the city center. That's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, when it's finally time to head back, it is pitch black out, it's pouring rain, and his phone, which is his literal only source of GPS, dies completely. Panic sets in. And that leads right to mistake 3. Out of pure desperation, he asks an older guy on the street for directions and actually lets this total stranger walk him all the way back to his supposedly secure home. Now, the student figured he was safe once he got inside, right? He climbs into his bunk bed and goes to sleep. Well, think again. This brings us to a frankly terrifying 4 a.m. climax. He wakes up to a blinding flashlight pointed squarely in his face. A stranger's face is literally inches away from his own in the pitch black hotel room. The consequences of all those earlier mistakes had completely breached the walls of what he thought was a locked, secure...
And get this, when the terrified kid asks who he is, the intruder doesn't run. Nope. He calmly claims he's from the lobby, just helping another student on the trip named Samuel look for a missing visa. Spoiler alert, the guy claiming to be from the lobby was definitely not from the lobby. It was a brilliant, incredibly malicious psychological trick designed to completely disarm a room full of groggy, confused teenagers.
Let's break down this intruder's playbook, because it's wild. First, the student almost certainly didn't wait to make sure that heavy automated front door fully latched behind him in the rain, which let the guy from the street just slip right on in. Once inside, the intruder uses social engineering, that fake story about Samuel's visa, to confuse everyone. He operated with absolute confidence. I mean, he even enlisted the sleepy students to help him search their own room, all while brazenly swiping laptops, personal items, and actual visas right in front of their faces. He flawlessly exploited fatigue and naivety.
All right, let's head north for case study 3, the Norwegian convoy.
We are shifting gears to the freezing, sparsely populated Arctic Circle in Norway to see how fast a totally mundane driving maneuver can escalate. A group of friends is driving close to midnight on a pitch-black, single-lane road, and they simply overtake a slower Golf on a legal passing stretch. Totally normal, right? But suddenly, the Golf hits the gas, it starts violently tailgating them, and switches on this massive, blinding roof floodlight. Trying to shake him, the travelers wind through a random village, but the stalker perfectly mimics every single evasive turn they make. When they finally decide to gun it toward a police station 40 minutes away, the most chilling detail happens. 2 more mysterious cars pull out from the side of the remote road and join the Golf. They literally formed a coordinated shark-like convoy hunting them through the dark.
At one point during their desperate maneuvering in that village, the travelers actually hit a dead end. They were forced to very carefully squeeze their car right past the stalker's vehicle just to escape. And as they passed, the driver made direct eye contact. His face was completely cold and expressionless. There was no road rage, no screaming, just a calculated, chilling stare. Pure psychological terror.
So, they finally make it to the police station, which, by the way, is completely pitch black and empty, and they have to wait for an officer to arrive while this convoy just circles them in the distance. When a burly officer finally gets there and pulls over the lead car, they realize the horrifying legal reality of their situation. Tailgating someone for an hour? Technically not a crime. Circling a police station? Not a crime. Staring victims down? Also not a crime. Simply driving on a public road in the middle of the night doesn't actually break any law.
The sheer brazenness of these predators became crystal clear a few moments later. While the police officer is literally taking the driver's details, the man, speaking in a thick Eastern European accent, looks right past the cop, locks eyes with the terrified travelers again, and just mocks them. He says, "Still staring at me, by the way." He had absolutely zero fear of the authorities because he knew exactly where the legal boundaries were drawn.
Which brings us to our final section, surviving the unknown. Okay, so we've seen extreme isolation in Thailand, slick social engineering in Brussels, and a coordinated vehicular stalking nightmare in Norway. How on earth do we protect ourselves when the safety net vanishes? First off, we've got to balance our idealized view of travel with the hard facts. The travel fantasy tells us to embrace carefree exploration, take spontaneous detours, and always trust the kindness of locals. But the vulnerable reality? It's pretty stark. Geographic isolation means help isn't coming anytime soon. Battery dependency means a dead phone leaves you totally blind. And naive trust, that just makes you a prime target. We have to reconcile these two realities.
So, let's lay down some hard and fast rules for situational awareness, pulled directly from the mistakes and survival tactics we've analyzed today. Rule number 1. Never, ever lead a potential threat back to your home base. If you think you're being followed, skip the hotel. Rule number 2. Maintain redundant navigation. A simple paper map or a backup power bank could have saved that student in Brussels. Rule 3. Never assume automated security actually works. Physically push doors shut to make sure they latch. And finally, if you are being followed, do exactly what those drivers in Norway did. Navigate immediately to a populated public space or a police station. Do not stop in an isolated area.
Look, the point of this explainer isn't to ruin a joy of travel. Far from it. It's about empowering you to navigate the world safely and confidently. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on the next time you find yourself entirely alone in a beautiful, unfamiliar part of the world. If your phone dies, the streets go dark, and footsteps approach, what is your plan? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay safe out there and always stay aware of your surroundings.